For my next recipe, I'm making bread pudding. This recipe works in an 8x8 pan, but since I don't have that, I'll be using the smaller pan and 2 of my individual serving size dishes. And I was trying to decide which one of these I wanted to use. I think the one on the right is a little bit taller, and that'll work better for the bread pudding, so I'll be using that. If you want to double this recipe, you can do that and cook it in a larger pan. I'll be using about 3/4 of a loaf of this French bread. There are so many different variations of this recipe. This dish is made throughout the world, and each country makes theirs a little bit different. If you ever have time to check out the Wikipedia page for bread pudding, they list all the different countries and the ingredients that they use. They're all very similar, with just slight differences in the ingredients. It might be fun sometime to make a few of those variations. The kind of bread pudding that I'll be making is the one that has been popular here in the United States. However, even these recipes vary by region. In the South, in states like Louisiana, they sometimes serve it with a whiskey or a rum sauce, and it's frequently sprinkled with powdered sugar. I'll just be topping mine with either milk or oat milk. I also think you'll find that some people like theirs a little bit wetter and some people like theirs kind of dry. I'm someone that's in the middle. I like the top to be kind of dry and then kind of moist underneath, but not super wet. I've made bread pudding with lots of different kinds of bread, and I like mine best with French bread. It adds a nice chewy texture that you can't get when you use regular bread. Usually I use stale bread, but this is fresh, so we'll see how this turns out. And I just cut them up in bite-sized squares. The same method that I'm using to make this bread pudding can also be used to make a savory bread pudding that's known as a strata, where you basically just whip together some eggs and milk along with cheese, meat, or veggies and pour it over the bread and bake it. If I have time in this video, I might show one at the end. Since bread is so inexpensive, it's a great option for my viewers that are having difficulty affording food. And even if you're not on a budget, you're going to want that recipe because it's freaking delicious. I'm using 4 whole eggs, 3/4 cup of sugar, 2 cups milk, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I don't always like cinnamon in my recipes, but I really like it in my bread pudding. I'm going to take the back of my wooden spatula just to make sure that every piece of bread is soaked with the egg mixture. It's not important to have the egg line up above the bread, but it is important to make sure that each piece of bread is soaked. I'll put a link to the original recipe for you. As written, it says to add 6 slices of bread, but if you're like me and you're using French bread, then that can be kind of confusing. I will say though, if you like a more soggy and wet bread pudding, then use less bread and maybe cook for a little less time. I like mine moist on the bottom and dry on the top, and I've made this recipe enough to know about how much I need on the bread to liquid ratio, and you'll see how mine turns out at the end. On the small one, I have a lot more liquid than bread, so I'm going to add a few more pieces of bread just to soak that up. Now I'll bake these at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. I forgot that I wanted to try something with one of these individual servings. I wanted to add some frozen berries, but I forgot to add them in before I started cooking, so about halfway through, I added a few to the top. I wasn't sure if unsweetened berries would work, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Here is the classic bread pudding, and after about 45 minutes, it's looking pretty good, although I think I'll let it go for another 5 minutes just to be sure. Since I like to eat mine with milk over it, I'd rather it to be a little more done than underdone. Here's how the one with the berries turned out. It looks delicious, so I'm excited to try this. Wow. Even though these berries were unsweetened, they are delicious. I think I just discovered a new way to make a fruit cobbler. Normally when I make my cobbler, I use flour to make it, but using this French bread makes everything so good with a chewy texture. Plus, it makes for a super simple recipe. Here is the fully cooked regular bread pudding. It turned out perfect. I'm actually not sure which one I like better, the one with the berries or the one without. They're both very different, but I like them both equally. Probably next time I'll make a pan of half and half. It's now the next day, and I have to admit that half the pan is already gone because that's how much I love it. I love it for breakfast. I love it for dessert. Maybe next time I'll cut the sugar in half. I could add some protein powder in to make it a little more balanced. And I'm wondering about using wheat bread. If anyone's experimented with making a healthier version of bread pudding, let me know in the comments. That's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way. Sometimes I give up, just wanna be on